Please rise for the flag salute. Mr. DiPiero, if you would. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Here.
Mr. DePiero?
Here.
Mr. Ferrara?
Here.
Mr. Nelson?
Here.
Mr. Stanton?
Here. Others present, Mayor Barbario, Jasmine Lim, Business Administrator, Paul Cazarelli, Assistant Business Administrator, John Inglesino, Esquire, Township Attorney, Yancy Wazirmis, Township Clerk. Purpose of this meeting is to set the agenda for the regular Township meeting of May 14, 2013. Formal action may or may not be taken.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the meeting notice on the bulletin board at the Municipal Building on December 10, 2012, where it has remained posted since that date. A legal notice appeared in both the Daily Record and on December 14, 2012, and the Star Ledger on December 13, 2012. And it was forwarded by fax to other local newspaper and local radio station on December 10, 2012. In addition, adequate notice of the location change of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the notice on the bulletin board at the Municipal Building on March 12, 2013, where it remains continuously posted. A legal notice appeared in the Daily Record on March 13, 2013, with the location change for the specified meeting dates. Note, council meetings are videotaped and aired on Cablevision Public Access Channel 21 at 12 p.m. on Sundays, and are also available for viewing at www.parsippany.net.
Okay, ordinance for introduction. Ordinance 2013:10. Mr. DiPiero.
Ordinance 2013:10. Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, calendar year 2013. Ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank. NJSA 48:4-45.14. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on May 7th, 2013, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on June 18, 2013, at 7 p.m. prevailing time, or soon thereafter, as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law.
Motion by Mr. DiPiero, second by Mr. Farrar. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes. Resolution 2013-100. Mr. Farrar.
Resolution authorizing the introduction of the 2013 municipal budget.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Farrar, second by Mr. DiPiero. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Before I vote on this, I want to state my reason for voting the way I'm going to vote. And that is, in this economic times, I cannot go with when we have merit raises for individuals of up to $5,000 for some people. And we also have merit raises for part-time employees that, in addition to the 2% raise that people are getting, which some of these people make a lot more money than other employees. And I cannot approve a merit raise, or I cannot vote in favor of a budget that includes merit raises for part-time employees that equal more than full-time employees, their annual raise. So for that reason, I am voting no.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Before I vote, I just have a question. This is just a vote to introduce the budget. Once it's introduced, can changes be made?
No, if changes are made, we would have to amend the budget and reintroduce it.
Okay. No.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes. Okay, ordinances, second reading, public hearing, everything set for next meeting? Yes, everything set? Jonathan, is this where you wanted to ask a question on on the future? Okay. Discussions and reminders, scheduled meetings. May 14, 2013, 7:30 p.m. Regular meeting, public invited, public participation. We will be at Parsippany High School. June 11, 2013, 7:30 p.m. Agenda meeting, public invited, public participation. The site is not set. We will let you know during next week's meeting. Minutes for approval, 4/9/2013 agenda meeting, 4/16/2013 regular meeting, 4/16/2013 closed session meeting. Okay, Mayor Barbario to present Buddy Poppy's proclamation to VFW to kick off fundraising campaign.
It does. I gotta raise it though. Okay. First of all, thank you for coming today, and thank you for all you do for us as well. Thank you very much. The Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills proclamation, whereas the annual sale of Buddy Poppies by the veterans of foreign wars of the United States has been officially recognized and endorsed by the government leaders since 1922, and whereas VFW Buddy Poppies are assembled by disabled veterans, and the proceeds of this worthy fundraising campaign are used exclusively for the benefit of disabled and needy veterans and the spouses and orphans of deceased veterans. And whereas the basic purpose of the annual sale of the Buddy Poppies by the veterans of foreign wars is eloquently reflected in the desire to honor the dead by helping the living. Now therefore, I, James R. Barbario, the Mayor of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, do hereby proclaim May 2013 as VFW Buddy Poppies Month and urge all citizens to support the veterans organizations by purchasing and wearing Buddy Poppies as evidence of our gratitude to the men and women of this country who have risked their lives in defense of the freedoms we continue to enjoy as American citizens. Dated the 7th day of May 2018. That's for you. Now you can go collect your front row here.
Thank you, folks. When you do see us out there, and we're all over the place, please get your poppy and make a donation. This is a worthy cause. This is our fundraiser to help veterans here in Parsippany and in the state of New Jersey. Thank you. Make sure you wear them so everybody can see. There we go.
Thank you.
There you go, Brian. Look at that, I got a donation. You got two. There you go, bud. I got two donations. Three donations. I got a donation for everybody on the council. Thank you very much.
Okay, Miss Addie Cologne from JCP&L, area manager, would like to address the mayor and council.
Good evening. I want to first thank you for your time. I know you have a very busy schedule, but I wanted to formally introduce myself as Addie Cologne. I'm the area manager for your township. Also, any of the districts out of the Boonton district, I'm physically located there. JCP&L First Energy has been extremely busy with process improvements and communications, and absolutely preparing for our next storm as well. I just want to formally invite the council and the elected officials. We have an RDO tour on May 15th from 1:30 to 3:30. Welcome you to come and see what we do, what our dispatchers do, and how an outage is reported and information like that. So welcome you to come. If you have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer them for you.
Where will that be?
That's going to be in the Morristown headquarters, 300 Madison Avenue. And I did send an email out. There's an email that went out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, administration, bids to be taken. April 12, 2013, 11 a.m., rental of heavy equipment. April 24, 2013, 11 a.m., Route 46 water main replacement. Hill Road to Cherry Hill Road, rebid. 4/25, 2013, 11 a.m., road reconstruction project from Mount Tabor. Summerfield Avenue, Heading Place, West Morris Avenue, Banghart Place, Embry Place, Asbury Place, Wesley Place. May 2nd, 2013, 11 a.m., St. John's Avenue reconstruction project, Section 2. May 7, 2013, 12 p.m., FY 2012 Municipal Aid Project, Waterview Boulevard improvements. Bid to be taken, May 29, 2013, 11:30 a.m., electric generation supply services.
Councilman Snett?
Yes.
I just want to note that we just received the bids for the Waterview Boulevard project this morning, and if everything looks okay, we'd like to put it on the consent agenda for next week.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay, ordinances and resolutions, they all set for next week? I will. Just want to make sure it's, everything's good for next week?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Nelson? Here you go. I don't want anything to write this out.
Just have a few questions about the ordinance that will be put on the agenda next week, one of them. And after my questions, I'm going to make a motion. For anybody in the audience who has an agenda, the second to last ordinance, it's an ordinance of Township of Parsippany amending the off-duty police officer rate. That ordinance is asking the Township Council to give off-duty police officers a 30% pay increase from $50 to $65 an hour, and then a premium rate of $75 to $97.50 an hour. The township also collects currently an administrative fee from $5 an hour right now, and they want to increase that to $10 an hour. My motion is going to be just to scrap it completely. Last week, administration sent us a memo regarding this ordinance, and with it was a handwritten spreadsheet explaining what other towns in the county make. And the reason why I'm bringing this up was, some people may remember earlier in the year, one of the first things I voted on was a resolution forgiving a debt to Hanover Township, because Hanover refused to pay how much Parsippany was making, and we had to forgive a couple $100. I don't remember the exact amount. But anyway, on the spreadsheet that was given to all the council members, at best, they're inaccurate, and at worst, they're just untruthful. Because what was sent to me, it explained that Chatham Township pays their off-duty police officers $80 an hour. I spoke to the business administrator last Friday for Chatham, and they actually earn $49 an hour. Roxbury, Jasmine sent me an email this afternoon. It was represented to the Township Council that they make $60 an hour, but in actuality, they make $50 an hour. I can go on, but I called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different towns, and the numbers that were given to the council were actually very different than what officers in other townships make. Parsippany officers don't make the most in the county, but they're nowhere near the bottom of the list either. They're one of the top 3 highest paid for off-duty. So I'm asking that the council, my motion is just to scrap it. I'm hoping I can get a second and we can get the real numbers in the near future.
Well, I plan to vote no on that particular ordinance. If the police officers had volunteered their time for the Parsippany Festival and for the parade that we have, then I would have no problem with this, because this is usually paid by contractors who are working on our streets, and that's fine. But it also affects us taxpayers when we have to pay them overtime to be at the parade and to be at the Parsippany Festival. And I object to that. I'm not giving them additional tax money and raise this too. So I had already planned to vote no on this.
Mike, could I take your no vote as a second?
You want to do that now? Okay.
I don't even want to.
Okay,
I don't
all right.
even want to first read it.
All right, then I'll second that motion.
You don't need to take a vote for that. You can just simply
Just remove.
just remove it from the agenda.
Okay.
Well, we have to make sure we have a quorum that agrees to remove it.
Yeah, I just had to. Is this referring to an outside rate that contractors pay for the officers?
This is for their overtime when they have to, when you see them in the streets.
Right, right, no, I know. So this full cost is paid by the private contractor. Is that what this is? Because...
It's paid for by private
Okay,
contractors.
That was my question. Okay.
Well, I already answered that, but I'll answer it again,
Well, no,
Mr.
because
Carriffy.
what you were talking about would be at an overtime rate, which is
Well,
usually time and a half the regular
Well,
rate.
whenever they work extra time on the streets, okay? Whether it's for a utility or whether it's for a parade or a festival, it's the same thing. That's overtime, and that's why I object to it.
Okay, roll call.
Can I just clarify? The off-duty officers do work public jobs. They'll work for the Board of Ed. They also work on township road projects. The festival and the 4th of July are by law paid as overtime, because that's their normal duties, and they're working for the same employer.
My problem really has nothing to do with them being paid by outside agencies, outside towns. It's the in-house that I don't agree with.
Mr. Council President, one thing that we're missing, when contractors bid to do work and road work is necessary, taxpayers are ending up paying for it because that's going into the bidding process.
The bid goes up.
Yeah,
No, I
so the
agree.
bid is going to go up.
Thank you. Okay, can I have a roll call on removing the ordinance from introduction?
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero.
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes. Okay, ordinance is removed. Okay, everything else in line? Any other questions? Good. Okay. R 2013-101. Mr. Nelson.
R 2013-101, resolution by the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills authorizing the submission of an application for community development funding.
Motion by Mr. Nelson, second by Mr. DiPiero. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi.
Yes.
Mr. DePiero. Yes. Mr. Ferrara.
Yes.
Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Mr. Stanton.
Yes. Discussion, Craftsman Farm Foundation request for funding. Jasmine?
Yes, I provided the council with a memorandum summarizing the Craftsman Farms Foundation request for funding, and I'm proposing that if the council decides to fund the request, that part of it come from the historic preservation pot, some of it come from the parks pot. In addition, there are some old funding resolutions for Craftsman Farms in particular and for other historic preservation projects. And I'd like to, whatever, I'm trying to get a handle on what what portion of those resolutions are no longer required to be used for their original purpose. And so we would reallocate that funding also to the request. But there are representatives of Craftsman Farms here if anyone has any questions. And if you don't, I just need to know whether you want me to put it on for next week for...
Exactly. That's what I wanted to ask.
The bottom line in terms of what would be left in the pots, is that what you mean?
What are they asking for?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. The bottom line is they're requesting $520,000. They did withdraw the request for the restoration of the stone piers. So without reallocating the funds that are no longer required, what I was proposing was that $200,000 be allocated from the historic preservation pot, which presently has a $567,000 balance and is replenished at about $95,000 a year. And then the remaining $320,000 or less than that, if I find unspent funds, would come from the parks portion of the Open Space Trust Fund. And trying to remember, I don't think I said that. The parks portion of the open space, or the parks pot, has a pretty sizable balance. I think it's 1.8 million right now. We're proposing, I think, 1 million for the as a down payment this year for the parks improvement projects. But it would leave a good amount of money in both pots, if that was the allocation.
So you're recommending the money of $520,000 from two sources?
Yes.
Okay.
And if I can find funds that are unspent and not required, no longer required. So can I put a resolution on for next week?
Hold on one second. Mr. Wilkins, I know, I saw him. Right, I thought I saw him. I can't see him.
Well, we have our executive director of board president here too.
Okay. I have a question. Do you want to, okay. I want somebody to go over the 300,000, exactly what is it that you're doing there with that construction, please? I know.
The 300,000 portion of it is to be seed money to restore to restore and do rehabilitation on a building known as the White Cottage. The entire project is going to be between $1.1 and $1.2 million, and we're fully committed to raising the balance on our own. The project will be a place for our administrative offices upstairs, and downstairs we'll be creating a resource center, which is largely a library and archival materials.
That's it, there's no, like, if you want to, like, to do a meeting or how big
Oh,
is it?
absolutely,
How big
yeah.
is it, how many people can it hold? I'm sorry, I'm not talking about the offices, I'm not
Yeah,
talking
the
about-
downstairs
how you do it.
area of the White Cottage has 3 very large rooms, one which is the size of a reading room in a small library, which would be perfect for meetings. Although we already have another space on the property in our education building that's already in use for meetings by the public.
Right, I'm sorry. My question is, how many people can you put in a room? Pick any room, like the biggest room.
Probably about 20 to 25 in a single room in that. That's not going to be our primary program space.
Okay.
The primary program space will move to the building that's now housing the offices. It's called the administration building. And that space will allow 50 to possibly 60 people at any given time. And the reason for that is that the log house, which is our primary public space right now, is attracting 13,000 visitors a year.
Yeah, I know all that.
So I'm just saying,
wasn't
we've kind of
crystal
maxed
clear.
out what we can do in that
Right,
building, yeah.
I just wasn't crystal clear if somebody wanted to have a meeting or if it was for yourself, how many people you could, like, if somebody called you and said, I want to rent this room and, like, want to have 150 people, like a company, I just wasn't crystal clear. I'm not
Yeah.
even sure if they could do that.
Sure, they
I
can't by
just
fire
want-
code, they could fit, but their fire code won't allow it. so.
Right, so it's 60 people.
Yep.
That, you answered my question, thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, Jasmine, do you need a roll call for putting it on for next week's meeting, or? Okay. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, good for next week.
Mr. Council President, just one thing, and I digress a little bit, but while we're on the historic property, Jasmine, we had a historic advisory committee meeting last week, and I'm hoping that the administration can find it in its heart to at the very least this year, board up the top floors of the Baldwin House because the windows are broken. And we're all just concerned that the elements and animals are going to get into the house. They're not requesting much money, but just enough just to maintain it to what it is right now.
At
We-
the same time, can
We,
we look into fixing it?
in my, in the same memo regarding Craftsman Farms, I mentioned that Gabe Yacarino had requested some funding for some of the other historic sites, including the Littleton Schoolhouse, the Baldwin House, and the Bowlesby Delegate
Okay.
House.
So that'll be, okay.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, engineer report for May 2013, Mr. Greefy.
All right, there's no change. Oops, sorry. No change with the exception of the last 2 items. The no parking, Spring Hill Drive. This office has received a request from the Glenmont Commons Homeowners Association requesting a no parking zone on either side of the driveway leading to the community pool. The police department and this office have investigated this request, and it was determined that the parking should be prohibited on either side of the driveway in order to allow for better sight distance.
Okay, all in favor of adopting the ordinance?
Aye.
So
Okay.
we'll put that on for introduction next week.
Thank you.
Major soil moving permit, Ferring Properties, Inc., Block 136, Lot 43.01. The Planning Board has approved a major soil moving permit in conjunction with the approved site plan at the referenced property. The Planning Board and this office recommend the Township Council approve the permit by resolution.
Okay, in favor of putting the resolution on? Excellent.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Creepy. Okay, anything under resolutions? Everything good for next week? Okay, applications, resolution approving place-to-place transfer, expansion of premises of plenary retail consumption license for the Holiday Inn, reapprove. Resolution authorizing person-to-person transfer, plenary retail consumption license for Llewellyn Tavern LLC. Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion, open this up to the public. Motion by Mr. DiPiero, second by Mr. Karifi. You'll be given 5 minutes to speak. Please, when you come in, please sign in, and when you come up, just announce your name and address, please. I got a coin if you want to flip, Roy.
Roy Messmer, 10 Drumlin Drive. Good evening, everyone. Tonight we covered a lot of things historical, but we lost 2 more soldiers, Marines from New Jersey this week. I saw Sam waving at me. I didn't know if he was going to speak tonight. I always like Sam to go first. Has the blue-collar contract been ratified, Mayor? Jasmine?
It's been ratified
Yes.
When will it come in front of the council?
We're going to closed session tonight. Going to closed session tonight.
Oh. So we should stick around then? Because, I've spoken about the blue-collar guys many, many times. I travel the state from Bergen County down to Cape May, and everybody I run into when I say I'm from, or they see my address, they see Morris Plains. Sometimes I tell them I'm really from Parsippany, and they say Parsippany. You wouldn't believe how many people know this town because with Brian and the mayors played ball throughout their careers. People have played in this town, Smithfield. Now that we have the field up on Walsh Drive, the soccer club brings in kids and families throughout the state. When I used to run the baseball tournament with Triple Crown, they're still coming here on July 4th. These guys do a heck of a job. And lately, I know I'm going to run out of time, but the weather's been nice, and I go up to Mountain Way. And every time I get done doing my hour and a half run and walk, I take a little ride. I'll go down to Greystone. That's changed a lot. I'll go over to Glenmont Commons. I get a nosebleed when I get to the top, coming down. These men do a heck of a job. And speaking about Glenmont Commons, whoever plows there should get combat pay. But I hope you guys approve their contract tonight. I have no idea what the amounts are. I'm sorry? Something was said tonight regarding the merit raises by one of the council people. I have to agree with that council person. When you take a job in the public service, you get other type of benefits. And when I hear what these men make, and I did a report many years ago, our blue-collar men and women make substantially less than the surrounding towns. And I don't understand that. I think, I've said this many times also, I think that the person in this town that has the toughest job, don't get mad, Mayor, I think it's Greg Snyder. I think he has a very tough job. And one thing that I've always done in different businesses, whether I've been an employee or an owner or a partner, joint venture, I always like to pay the people the best, because then you can yell at them. I'm only kidding. But I think that we should do something here and catch up real quick. I'm going to couple of things real quick. Mayor, I think you missed a very big line item on this budget this year. Very big one. Pitching lessons. Oh, yeah. I've seen these guys throw. And you really should put that. I'll do it for nothing, but put $5,000 in there, and then I'll give it back, because these guys need some work.
I bet you if you're behind the plate, I'll hit a strike.
The other thing I want to talk about, too, I know Jonathan brought up a very good point tonight. I guess, Jasmine, you got some homework to do. Those off-duty police officers, if I don't know what went on here, Jonathan said he called about 7 or 8 towns. I think we really should get back to, Jasmine, did our police officers give you those rates, or did you or one of your assistants call up? The police gave you the rates. Woo-hoo. And you didn't check it? Okay. You didn't call the other towns? Last thing. This past weekend was one of the nicest times I've had in this town. I've never gone to Julie Peterson's house for her weekend open house. It was fantastic. They covered the Lewis and Clark, and I just recently read a book on Lewis and Clark. Fantastic actors. The whole day was fantastic. And then 20 years, well, I don't know when we bought the property, about 12, 13 years ago, Mayor Letts. Japanese Gardens. I know nobody likes calling it the Japanese Gardens, but it was absolutely fabulous. And if you haven't been there, take your mother or your wife there this weekend. But call Helen first. Thank you. Do I have any time left?
10 seconds.
Go ahead.
Roy, the Japanese garden is a rock garden. It's not a Japanese garden.
Please sign in too, please. Thank you.
My name is Lori Cancellieri, 242 Pittman Road, Parsippany. I would like to know if we're allowed to speak on the Waterview rezoning issue?
You have 5 minutes to speak.
Okay, I can do
Yes,
that?
yes.
Okay. 75% of the property will be covered by concrete and asphalt. The water supply will never be the same. Parsippany has always had absolutely the best quality of drinking water in the state. We don't even have to filter it. Just another major asset that will be directly compromised. For example, aquifers potentially damaged due to unaccustomed massive amounts of stress in the area. Now introduce gas and oil leakage shed by the non-stop delivery trucks and garbage trucks that also have a double problem of the killer bacteria in the garbage area and thousands of passenger automobiles and machinery used by these stores and establishments, not to mention herbicides, pesticides they are going to want to use to make it all look pretty, all cumulatively contaminating the groundwaters. Now add to that heavy metal contamination, cyanide, arsenic, PCBs, just to name a few, shed by all the above mentioned. And this is just to do with the stores. Add to this the townhouse complex. All of this going on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, forever. Included with this is air quality. This treasured plot of trees at Waterview may be the last substantial plot left in our area. These trees do much good at keeping our town's air clean and fresh. It can be noticed coming up Route 280 from the east. It gets noticeably cleaner smelling right at Parsippany's exit. This is especially important because we're surrounded by highways all around us, and these trees are filters for all the tons of exhaust fumes from trucks and cars on these highways. All of this is not temporary, it's permanent. An irreversible, corrupt gash in the last remaining pristine landscape of our area. All this in the name of the current economy. We, the residents, would like to see expert documents that have evaluated this potential. Think about the less is more principle. If we preserve Parsippany like we have it now, in the future, this could be invaluable. We could be the only town left in its original state. Think long term. That's thinking smarter. This endeavor is permanent. What happens when the economy improves and gets back to normal? Then it will be back to business, commuters jamming up the roads, and on top of this condo, townhouse, store, mall, whatever it's going to be, the monstrosity. So I just want you to consider all those facts. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Hi, Lorraine Strauss, 8 Robert Street. I'm here with my husband and several of our other neighbors. We've lived in Parsippany about 6 years and have 2 small children. Over the past several months, we've had increasing safety concerns with our neighborhood due to the residence right next door to us, which is 6 Robert Street, which is being used as a boarding house. So rooms are being rented out individually, which leads to 6, 8, 10 cars on the street in front of our house on both sides of the street, many of which are not New Jersey plates. So really, we're just concerned a little bit with the safety right now because we don't understand who our neighbors are. There's people walking up and down the street on their cell phones. We're not familiar with them, and we really would just like some clarity on what the Parsippany ordinance is regarding rental properties. It was our understanding that it was either single-family homes, which are obviously occupied by a family, or it's a one-family or a two-family rental, and not individual rooms which are being rented out. 8 Robert Street.
Well, after the meeting, I'll speak with you privately,
Ma'am?
and we'll talk.
Forgive me, the speakers face out, and I don't have the best hearing. Is it Robin or Robert?
Robert.
Robert, okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Sigmund Balaban, 10 Grecian Street, Parsippany. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm going to speak on Waterview and other subjects. I am directing all my comments to the elected officials, and I would not like to see an unelected official try to squash my freedom of speech, because that would be an illegal act. And if it does happen, Council President, I ask that you gavel that individual out of order or call for a recess so you can gather your thoughts. On the Waterview issue, I've often wondered why a developer, an intelligent developer with excellent counsel, would come into an area and not get pre-approval for zoning, and why he would send a letter, or a letter would be sent, giving us Plan A or Plan B. That's it. And even more importantly, why we would accept it. The point being is there's A, there's B, and there's C. C being the court, C being the right to say no. Unless they feel that the representatives of this community have no backbone and they're going to intimidate us to getting what they want. I don't think that's the case, but I'm very concerned. But then I look at the counsel, the attorney that is advising you. This is the same attorney that would abridge our freedom of speech, that would say, hey, you can't talk about this, I'm not going to let you. Nobody stood up for the individual who is here trying to enforce their freedom of speech. The attorney, in my mind's eye, should be ashamed of themselves. But each of you gentlemen also should be ashamed of yourselves for not coming to that person's defense. We've all had relatives that fought in wars. We ourselves have fought in wars for certain freedoms. How you can sit there like stones permitting this to happen and not gavel somebody out of order is beyond words. Now, if you need guidance, some people have called for the attorney's resignation. I call for his firing, because that's the American flag, not a flag of some dictatorship, where you will say, hey, ask this question and not another question, okay? The other thing is, we cannot, as a community, and we could talk about quality of life, but there's a greater issue. There's an issue as an American, which overrides any political party that we may have. Now, from my mind's eye, if an action is not taken against the attorney, if Waterview is not rejected, okay, we cannot force you to do anything. We cannot make the blind see, we cannot make the deaf hear, but you will hear us come election day. Because listen to us now, because then it's going to be too late. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name's Rich Brott, number 7 Robert Street. And I'm just reiterating what Lorraine said. I assume that the mayor will speak with everybody here that is from Robert Street on the side or
Yes,
afterwards.
I will.
Okay, so we'll see afterwards.
Brian, before my time starts, please, can I just request one thing? I was going to request this also tonight. My questions are to the council and the mayor, and that's all I'd like to hear from tonight, please. I don't want to hear from the attorney either. Pat Patacha, 182 Hawkins Avenue. I have 3 concerns here tonight. One of the main concerns is the fact that this administration waived a $132,000 water and sewer bill for the Knoll Country Club. I was in the audience when they came in and said they were going to be in the black, that they needed to raise their fees, and you guys voted against raising fees. So now we're stuck waiving this fee for them of $132,000. The thing that upsets me even more is that I have known a few people from Lake Hiawatha who have come to this council and have tried to figure out why they are still being charged for water and sewer when they're not in their homes for close to 2 years. They're still getting the usage fees. They're still being billed. Now to me, once again, you're showing a business over your taxpayers, your residents. That is a self-sustaining entity. We should not be bailing it out. It should be making money for us. Please keep this in mind. Second thing I'd like to talk about is the use of the water and sewer surplus money. In 2011, we used $700,000. In 2012, $550,000. And in 2013, $550,000. It's $1,800,000 that you have used to balance a budget. That is the taxpayers' money. We were already taxed on it. Mr. Mesmer has fought for years to have that money reinstated to the taxpayers. And every time he brought it up, he was told by Mayor Barbario and Jasmine, it can't be done. Miraculously this year, it is done. I don't know what happened to make that change, but it was done. And since that was done, I want to know what happened. Can we expect more in the future? Actually, the mayor has to stop depleting this surplus. It's got to stop. It stays in the water sewer department. If it's not coming back to the taxpayers, it should not be being used for anything just because. I mean, there's no sense to that. If we can't balance a budget without taking money from someplace else, then we have problems. My next question is regarding open space. I heard that we're using open space money in this budget. Can you tell me anything about that tonight? Anybody? What is in the budget for open space?
I know we have projects coming up on
There, there are several park improvement projects that are being funded out of the Open Space Trust Fund that were transferred out of the current fund capital over to the open space. It includes the Smithfield expansion, some play equipment at, fitness equipment at Veterans Park. I can't remember what the other projects are, but is that what you mean?
Oh, basically. Has there been any open space meetings? Hasn't been. So none of this has gone through open space committee for their help or anything. Okay. Last April, when we had the open space meeting during the Field of Dreams, I asked that when there is open space meetings that they be put out on the website, so I hope in the future that will be done, and I hope in the future we have some meetings. I think another turf field is really not necessary. We don't understand how
30
much
seconds,
money.
Pat.
Okay.
Sorry.
We don't understand how much money it's going to cost us when these things need to be repaired, especially if they need to be repaired a couple of years in a row. The open space ordinance is still not correct. You know that. I know that. We still have to work on that. You have the word maintenance in there, and that's got to come out. We don't need another turf field. You saw the voters reject the school when they requested it. Do we want our money just to be spent on fields? No. What's needed, what's really needed, is better scheduling for the fields. You have some sports that monopolize some fields. You have to start better, like I said, better, what do you call it?
Okay, Pat, time's
Paper.
up.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Council President, can I respond
Yes.
a little bit?
Yes.
Pat, I didn't know you were going to bring up the Knoll Country Club. That's still bugging me because I did vote against it. We have 3 utilities in Parsippany. We have a water, we have a sewer, and we have a golf utility, and they're all self-liquidating. And by forgiving that water debt over to Knoll, regardless of past practices, I've only been up here a few months, so I can't explain away what was done in the past. It's setting a bad precedent. So I couldn't agree more with you. As far as turf fields, I went to my first freeholder meeting last night, and they approved almost $5 million for phase 2 of the turf fields over at Greystone, which is in Parsippany. And I'm all over Parsippany. People in Parsippany don't even know that that exists, that there are 4 turf fields going in our town. And so I have the little bully pulpit. Let me let everybody know about it, that in a very few short months, there's going to be a rugby field there, a field hockey, and a couple of new soccer fields that will be in Parsippany. So I invite everybody to go over there and take a look.
I would just like to state that I agree with you in reference to the sewer rates. I'd like to see further reductions in our sewer rates. If our surplus is going to continue to rise, there's no need, especially with the refurbishments that were made and the money that we're saving.
First, let me state several things here in regards to the sewer surplus and the sewer treatment plant. As everybody knows, the sewer treatment plant was dilapidated before 2010. In 2011, it was worked on, and then 2012 of April, it was completed. Surplus has increased due to the fact that we've saved on our energy costs by 70%. A lot of stuff, you're not really hearing the whole entire history of the sewer treatment plant. Let's talk about the surplus. We gave back $1.5 million in surplus in the beginning of this year to the ratepayer. We decreased the fixed rate by 10%. We're going to do more. As time goes on, we're going to see how our surplus goes in each year until we can get it steady enough. We only need a certain amount of money. And the reason why you need to have a certain amount of money in a surplus is because of unexpected disasters, like you just saw we had a storm. Okay? The sewer treatment plant was at risk because of dirty energy going into the plant. Now, if something would have happened to the blowers, to the pumps, we have no, if we start depleting the surplus, we have no contingency plan, and then we're in a state of emergency when it comes to grabbing dollars when you don't have a certain amount of surplus in. And that's what we've been dealing with from 2010-11, and then when it was completed in 2012. So now that the sewer treatment plant is running efficiently, we excuse me, we're going to come up with a figure that we need to have in that plant. Say if something were to happen to that plant, you can't do water, you can't do something. I'm not an expert. I mean, Sam, you probably know more about me than the sewer treatment plant. But the fact of the matter is, just that process alone, if we couldn't do water and move the sludge and the water was separated, that's a $4 million, from what the supervisor told me, that's like a $4 million project. So you need to have a certain amount of money in a surplus. And that's a fact. And now, let's talk about the surplus that was given back to the ratepayer, $750,000, $550,000, another $550,000. When you give the surplus back and you bring it into the general fund, you're lowering the tax levy. You're decreasing the tax that you would be increasing. Now, if you don't want to use the surplus, that's fine. Well, then there will be a tax increase this year. I was not going to have a tax increase this year. We worked hard from 10, 11, 12, and 13 to get it to zero. And I think the residents of Parsippany deserve a break. But to sit here and say that the sewer treatment plant and the surplus and all that stuff, it's calculated to be a certain amount of money in surplus in the sewer treatment plant. Because if you don't have it, and I got to see firsthand what that storm did on October 29th to the sewer treatment plant. And thank God we had surplus if the emergency would have happened. And you want to speak in regards to the no?
All right.
Pat, okay.
Mr. President, can
All
I
right,
just make a
since-
small comment?
I'll make my comment first, if you
go
don't
ahead.
mind.
DPR, go ahead.
Regarding the Knoll Country Club, the sewer and water fees that were waived. 2 mayors ago, the Knoll Country Club had a $500,000 surplus. In fact, we had more. We had about $600,000 surplus. Now, that's used to offset bad seasons, unanticipated problems at the Knoll. 3 mayors ago, okay, she took the money, $500,000, to balance her budget. That left the Knoll with no surplus, no contingency funds. We had hurricanes, we had bad seasons, we had 400 trees down, okay, and there was no money to fall back on because it was taken. Also, that same mayor, when the road had to be paved that goes from Lake Hiawatha to the little bridge in Boonton, all right, that road does not only serve the golfers or the Knoll. It also serves 2 picnic areas and parks and forestry, and it's used as a through street. I see lots of vendors driving through from Boonton to Lake Hiawatha using that road, and yet she made the the Knoll budget pay for the entire paving, the entire length. So a lot was taken out of the Knolls, none was put back, and so waiving it now is just a partial payback for what was already taken out of the surplus for the Knoll, that they could have absorbed their own loss if their money was not taken from them.
Mr. President?
Mr. Nelson?
Sorry, Mr. Manning. That's why I was very measured when I said I can't speak for past practices. But this was money that was, Pat, you brought it up. I was never going to mention it, but I just thought taking money from one utility to go into another utility was just a bad, poor practice. As for the sewer surplus, there's no doubt, and I don't know the number, but there has to be a number that the experts have that we must maintain as a surplus. Quite honest, I'm on the fence about how much should be refunded, if anything. I'm really not sure. And the reason why I'm not sure is because people use the word ratepayer and taxpayer interchangeably, but they're not. There's somebody who can have a very big house, but they use no water because they're only there for 2 months of the year. So their water bill is going to be very high, very low. Yet they're getting tax relief in the surplus. Conversely, somebody might have a small townhouse with, I don't know, 50 fish tanks, and they're always flushing it out. So you know what I'm saying. So we have to be very careful when we use the word ratepayer and taxpayer. So is it, Pat, and this is really a question, is this what you're getting at? Because
I'm just getting at the fact that the giving entities maybe not helping entities. That's my...
Okay, I can't have dialogue back and forth.
All right. I don't know if I understand what you're saying. My problem, and I haven't resolved it yet, is giving tax relief via the ratepayer, and I don't have the answer for that yet. I am glad, though, I guess as a consolation prize, that the amount of surplus that was applied to the budget has decreased over the last few years. So, at the very least, that's a good thing.
See, I compare this to the same thing we did with the open space. We made a cut to the open space, but you can't do it all at once. Because if you turn around and you cut too much, then the next year you're going to be scrambling to make the money up. So it's just going to be a practice, and it's going to go slow, just to make sure we maintain. Same thing with the open space. I would like to see that go down too. Can't do it all at once. Mr. Manning?
Jerry Manning, Rainbow Lakes. I just want to comment on folks who are talking earlier about the development on 46, about bringing up the word pristine. I just want to remind all those folks that at some point in time, the property that their house is on was pristine. So I hope they're not saying, I got mine, you can't have yours. That's not the way to go. Also, a gentleman got up and said that the developer gave us a Plan A or a Plan B, and we should apply Plan C and say no. Well, if the gentleman had done his homework, he would have known that under New Jersey state law, you cannot prevent a landowner from building. What you can do is give him some rules as to how to build it or what to build, but you can't stop the build. And the people in Mountain Lakes recently had a fundraiser called Jump in the Lake. Well, if they want to stop the project, I hope they raised enough money to buy the property, because that's the only way they're going to stop it, by buying it. The comment about the attorney and being cut off from freedom of speech is a very basic premise. The town attorney is not only hired by the town to protect it against lawsuits and to defend it when need be and prosecute when need be, but at a council meeting, which is governed by Robert's Rules of Order, the attorney is the arbiter of Robert's Rules of Order. And there are rules that have to be followed at a council meeting. And that's what the attorney does, exercises his right as the arbiter of Robert's Rules of Order. Thank you.
My name's Samuel Poff, 203 Flemington Drive. I'm the president of the Blue Collar Union. I was here last month talking about how we've felt mistreated as of late with our contract, and just in general, I spoke quite a bit about the storms that we've dealt with over the last couple years, Hurricane Irene, Hurricane Sandy, the freak snowstorm, and all the applause the town got for how good we did and all that. And there was somebody made a comment that I was whining, that we got paid overtime, and we should have just been happy with that. Well, let's keep in mind that FEMA reimbursed every penny of every ounce of overtime we worked. So it didn't come out of the taxpayers. So we weren't whining. And this all about, the sewer plant. Yes, we did some upgrades at the sewer plant. Far from done. Far from done. So yes, you do need a surplus back as far as that goes. How much? I don't know. But I just want to bring up, after I spoke last month about us being felt mistreated, a lot of my guys really felt mistreated the next morning. They went to work.
Sam, I
Yes.
just need you to address us, not the audience.
Okay.
Thank you.
They went to work the next morning. They start work at 6 o'clock in sanitation, and Mayor Barbario was there, 5:45 a.m., intimidating members that came to this meeting, told the boss, anybody that came to this meeting, he wanted in his office. There's a guy sitting here that was there that morning, and his supervisor said, "What are you doing here at 5 after 6?" He said, "Well, I'm here to see the wellness coach." Oh, okay. That was the answer. So let's lead by example instead of ruling by intimidation.
I'd like to respond to Mr. Sam Poff. First of all,
Sam,
no,
I
this
can't-
ain't a
Sam, I
dialogue,
can't
Sam. I know that you
can't go
think
back
it
and
is.
forth.
It's
Whoa,
not.
whoa, do I still got time left? No?
I let you speak, Sam. Now I'm going to speak.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, let's go. You want to debate? Let's go.
First, let's talk about the overtime and stuff like that. First and foremost, I will say the township workers in Parsippany-Troy Hills, they work very hard for the community of Parsippany-Troy Hills. They do put a lot of time in during the storms. They were paid double time, from what I understand. Am I correct? They were paid double time, and Jasmine and I constantly sat there and said, listen, we got to, they're out there working hard and stuff like that.
FEMA paid
But
us.
what Sam, you see, what Sam doesn't tell you is all the past meetings that we had, when we could have had resolutions, when we could have had resolving. There's just certain things he didn't want to do. And the fact of the matter is, that's why this contract took so long. But that being said, it's been resolved, and I'm happy to see that it's been resolved. It was actually resolved before Sam came to the last meeting, but he told everyone here that it wasn't resolved prior to that. But that being said, it's resolved, I'm happy, and I think we need to move forward. And, Sam, I'm glad you accepted what we agreed upon, and that's really where we're at right now.
You made the comment about the reimbursement on the storm. Did FEMA not reimburse the township for all the overtime on Sandy?
FEMA reimburses at a rate of 75%. I don't know how much of they'll pay. My understanding is they'll reimburse us for the overtime, but not for the straight time.
Well, yeah, I would think that the town would pay our straight time rate.
No, we
It
haven't.
takes about a year.
No, it takes about.
It takes a year. We only received the money from Irene recently.
But needless to say, the fact is that this, like I said, could have been resolved a long time ago.
After that, I have a real simple question.
Name and address quick.
Oh, sorry, Ada Visakay, 4 Fox Chase Drive. Trees were just planted on my street, but maybe a third were planted, like in front of my house, there's 2 missing, they planted 2. Across the street, there's 2 missing. I'm wondering what's happening with the trees being planted.
Okay, I can find that out for you, Ada.
Thank you.
Warren Singer, 23 Homer Street. I think to begin with, I'd just like to make some comments with regard to what Mr. Balaban had said. I recognize that the exercise of the freedom of speech meets a different standard for forums such as a town council than it would be, let's say, on a street corner or at a park. But you have limited opportunity to quell speech when the speech is disruptive. Just because the speech does not meet what you agree to or what you approve doesn't mean that that individual should be denied that opportunity. RD Realty bought the 27 acres at the Watergate. I knew I should have worn my hat today. At Waterview, with the knowledge that it was zoned for office buildings, not a strip mall, not townhouses, not approximately 400 low-income apartments. No one forced them to buy it. For most people, the largest investment of their lives is for the purchase of a home, a place to peacefully raise their children. The people who live near the proposed site bought their homes with the expectation that their lives and those of their children will be qualitative and free of encroachment. Please demonstrate some concern for those folks who will be directly affected by a bustling 7-day-a-week strip mall. The interest of the developer should not trump the interests of residents. Please look out for the people of Parsippany and Mountain Lakes who will be especially affected by the proposed rezoning. As for the letter you received from the developer's attorney, I think most of us agree that the proposed alternative is not in our best interest. Please tell the developer, we will not be threatened. We will not be intimidated. We will not be cowed into silence. We will not rezone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Seeing no one else come further, I'll entertain a motion to close. Motion by Mr. Farrar.
Second.
Second by Mr. Creepy. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero? Yes. Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session for hearing officer for the police department and blue-collar worker contract.
Make a motion.
Motion by Mr. Farrar.
Second.
Second by Mr. Nelson. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes, resolution, whereas the Open Public Meeting Act, Public Law 1975, Chapter 231 permits exclusion of public from a meeting in certain circumstances, whereas Township Council, in the opinion such certain circumstances presently exist, whereas Township Council wishes to discuss attorney-client privilege, contract negotiations for blue-collar workers, whereas minutes will be kept once a matter involving confidentiality no longer requires confidentiality, the minutes can be made public. Now therefore be it resolved by Township Council of Township Parsippany-Troy Hills, public be excluded from this meeting. Motion by myself, second by Mr. Creepy. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi? Yes. Mr. DePiero? Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes, good night, everybody, anyone that's leaving, good night. I'll entertain a motion to reconvene. Motion by Mr. Karifi, second by Mr. Farrar. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara? Yes. Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes, resolution, Mr. DiPiero, if you would.
Resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills authorizing an agreement with the New Jersey Blue Collar Association, Local 1, relative to wages, benefits, and working conditions. Is Lee here? Oh, okay. All right. Whereas the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills and the New Jersey Blue Collar Association, Local 1, have conducted negotiations concerning wages, benefits, and working conditions for a 4-year period commencing January 1st, 2011, and ending on December 31st, 2014. And whereas a written memorandum of agreement dated April 9th, 2013, incorporating the terms of the negotiated agreement, has been approved by representatives of the Township and the New Jersey Blue Collar Association, Local 1. And whereas the terms of the memorandum of agreement dated April 9th, 2013, have been ratified by the members of the New Jersey Blue Collar Association, Local 1, now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills that it does hereby approve the terms of the above referenced memorandum of agreement by and between the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills and the New Jersey Blue Collar Association, Local 1, and authorizes the mayor and township clerk to enter into a collective bargaining agreement that incorporates the terms of the memorandum of agreement into the predecessor agreement for the January 1st, 2011 through December 31st, 2014 period.
Motion by Mr. DiPiero. Second by Mr. Karifi. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
President Stanton?
Yes.
So we'll put the blue collar salary ordinance on for next week for introduction also?
Entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Farrar, second by Mr. Karifi. Roll call.
Mr. Karifi?
Yes.
Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrara? Mr. Ferrara?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Stanton?
Yes. Good night, everyone.